When police broke through the walls of a quiet family home in Massachusetts, they found a teenage boy. He had been living there, hidden, for weeks, watching the family, listening to their every move. That boy was 16-year-old Daniel LaPlante. Just weeks after being discovered, he would murder a pregnant woman and her 2 children. This isn't a ghost story. It's a real crime that shocked the entire country. In 1986, the Bowen family was just trying to move forward. Frank Bowen had recently lost his wife to cancer. Now, it was just him and his 2 daughters, 15-year-old Tina and 9-year-old Karen. They lived in a modest home in Pepperell, Massachusetts. Quiet neighborhood, nothing unusual. Until things started happening. It began with small things. Furniture slightly moved, toys going missing, silverware ending up in the wrong drawer. Frank thought the girls were just grieving, maybe playing tricks. But then, the noises started. At night, the girls began hearing tapping, light knocking sounds, coming from behind their bedroom walls, every night. Tina thought maybe, just maybe, it was her mother. She and Karen had even tried using a Ouija board. They believed maybe her spirit was trying to reach them. But the sounds grew louder, more deliberate. And now, the girls were terrified. They told their father. He dismissed it as stress. He told them to stop watching scary movies. But then, one night, the noises moved to the basement. That night, Tina and Karen crept downstairs, flashlight in hand, hearts racing. And there, on the basement wall, was a message written in what looked like blood-red paint. "I'm in your room. Come find me." The girls screamed. They ran to the neighbors. Their father, Frank, came home in a panic. But again, he thought it was just his daughters. He believed they were writing these messages themselves, maybe acting out their grief. He told them to stop, but days later, another message appeared. This time, on Tina's bedroom wall. "I'm back. Find me if you can." And then a third message. "Marry me." This wasn't grief. This wasn't stress. Frank now knew something was terribly wrong. He stormed into the house, determined to find out who was behind this. And in Tina's room, he saw someone. Standing in the corner, a figure wearing a long wig, dressed in his late wife's clothing, holding a small hatchet. It wasn't a ghost. It was a person. Frank lunged. The figure ran. When police arrived, they searched the entire house, room by room, closet by closet. Nothing. Until one officer noticed something odd behind a built-in cabinet. They removed a wooden panel, and behind it was a small crawl space. Inside that space, hunched in the dark, was a boy. A living, breathing teenage boy. His name was Daniel LaPlante. And he had been living in the walls for weeks, watching the family, listening to every word. He'd carved tiny peepholes into the walls, moved through crawl spaces, left messages to scare them, even wore the mother's clothes to make them think they were being haunted. But this wasn't about ghosts. This was something far more real and far more dangerous. Daniel LaPlante wasn't just a stranger hiding in the walls. He was a teenager from the same neighborhood, a local high school student, just 16 years old. But from a young age, Daniel's life had been shaped by pain. He grew up in Townsend, Massachusetts, in a troubled household. There were reports that Daniel had faced mistreatment from people in his family and even from a therapist. At school, he struggled. He found it hard to focus. He didn't talk much, and he was often seen as strange. Other kids kept their distance. Daniel was isolated, and in that loneliness, something inside him began to twist. He started breaking into houses, but not to take things. Instead, he liked to move small objects, hide things, change the way the home looked. He wanted people to feel watched, uneasy, haunted. Daniel didn't want to rob people. He wanted to disturb them, quietly, to be invisible, but present. That's when he found the Bowen family. Daniel had broken into a friend's house and found a phone number. He called Tina Bowen. He pretended to be someone else, a nice boy named Danny. He told her he was tall, athletic, good-looking, and from a nearby school. Tina was 15. She had just lost her mother. She was vulnerable, and Daniel sounded kind on the phone. They agreed to meet. But when Daniel showed up at her door, Tina was shocked. He didn't look like the person he had described. He was nervous, unkempt. There was something off. The meeting was short, awkward. After that, Tina avoided him. She stopped taking his calls. Daniel didn't take it well. Instead of walking away, he broke into their home and found something terrifying. An old crawlspace behind the walls. He moved in, not for hours, not for days, for weeks. He lived inside the walls, listening, watching, waiting. Daniel carved holes in the walls to spy on the family. He moved objects just slightly, left disturbing messages, wore the mother's clothes, even held a small hatchet at one point to frighten them. He wanted the family to believe the house was haunted. But in truth, they were being watched by a real person, living just inches away. When police finally pulled Daniel from inside the walls, he was arrested and charged with breaking and entering. Because he was a minor, he was sent to a juvenile facility. But what happened next would turn this strange story into something far more tragic. Just 10 months later, Daniel LaPlante was released on bail, and the moment he was free, he started planning again. But this time, he wouldn't just hide. He would cross a line that would change lives forever. After Daniel LaPlante was released, something inside him had changed. He didn't go back to school. He didn't get help. Instead, he started roaming, looking for homes, watching families, and one home caught his eye, just a short walk from his own. It belonged to the Gustafsons. Andrew Gustafson was a young lawyer. His wife, Priscilla, was a kind-hearted teacher. They had 2 children, 7-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William. And Priscilla was pregnant with their 3rd. It was December 1st, 1987, a cold, quiet afternoon in Townsend, Massachusetts. Andrew left for work as usual. Priscilla stayed home with the kids. But sometime after 1 p.m., Daniel entered their home. No one knows exactly how. He may have broken a window or simply walked in through an unlocked door. What we do know is, by the time Andrew came home that evening, everything had changed. Andrew opened the front door and called out, but there was no answer. He walked upstairs and found his wife in their bedroom. She was no longer alive, lying still on the bed, a soft pillow nearby. The room was quiet, too quiet. Andrew rushed out. He called the police, terrified. Officers arrived within minutes, and what they discovered was devastating. Both of the Gustafson children were also gone, each found in a different bathroom, lifeless, their final moments, silent and alone. Priscilla had been hurt. The children had been placed in the bathtub. No valuables were missing. No sign of a typical break-in. It was personal, and it was cold. A calm, calculated act of harm from someone who had been watching. Police immediately looked at local offenders, and Daniel LaPlante was at the top of their list. He had a history. He lived nearby, and he had just been released. When officers approached his home, Daniel saw them coming and ran. He escaped out the back of the house and disappeared into the woods. For 2 days, police searched for him in freezing temperatures, helicopters, K9 units, roadblocks. The entire town was on edge. Then, on December 3rd, they found him hiding in a dumpster at an abandoned lumberyard. He was cold, dirty, tired, and he didn't say a word. Evidence recovered later was chilling. On Daniel's clothing, small traces that connected him to the Gustafson home. Inside his pockets, items that belonged to the family, and on one of his socks, a single strand of hair, matching one of the children. There was no doubt anymore. Daniel LaPlante had taken 3 innocent lives. In just under a year, he went from spying on a family through their walls to shattering another. The people of Townsend and the entire country were left asking the same question. How could a teenager do something like this? What led him there? And what would happen next? After the bodies of the Gustafson family were discovered, police moved fast, and one name came up immediately: Daniel LaPlante. He was known. He had a history. He had just been released from juvenile detention, and now he was nowhere to be found. Officers arrived at his family home, but Daniel was already gone. He had escaped out the back and vanished into the nearby woods. That night, the search began. It was early December. Temperatures were freezing, snow covered the ground, and Daniel was out there, on foot, in the dark. The manhunt grew quickly. Dozens of officers, police dogs, helicopters scanning the trees, roadblocks at every exit in town. Locals were terrified. People locked their doors. They checked closets and attics. No one knew where Daniel might go next. And the truth was, neither did he. In his panic, Daniel broke into a woman's home. He demanded her car keys. She managed to escape while he was distracted, and Daniel drove off in her pickup truck. But not for long. That same day, police found the abandoned truck near the town of Ayer, Massachusetts, just 20 miles away. Daniel had crashed it and disappeared again. This time, he went into hiding at an old lumber yard. He found a large industrial dumpster and crawled inside, covered himself in trash, and waited for 2 days. Then, on December 3rd, 1987, a group of officers searched the area. One of them opened the dumpster, and there he was, dirty, cold, wrapped in old insulation and garbage bags. Daniel LaPlante was taken into custody without a single word. He had been on the run for over 48 hours, but now his story would be told in court, and the world would finally see what he had done. After his arrest, Daniel LaPlante faced 3 charges for taking the lives of Priscilla, Abigail, and William Gustafson. The evidence was clear. Traces of the victims were found on his clothing. A strand of hair matched one of the children, and the items in his pockets had come from the Gustafsons' home. There was no reasonable doubt. In October 1988, Daniel stood before a jury. He was 18 years old, still so young. But the room was filled with tension. The families, the press, the community, all watching. And then the verdict came in. Guilty on all 3 counts. The judge sentenced Daniel LaPlante to 3 life sentences to be served back to back. He would not be eligible for parole for at least 45 years. The courtroom was silent, no applause, no relief, because nothing could bring back the lives that had been lost. Andrew Gustafson, the husband and father, later spoke to reporters. "I lost everything, my wife, my children, my future. No sentence can ever fix that." Daniel showed little emotion during the trial, and to this day, he has never fully explained why he did what he did. Years later, Daniel tried to appeal. In 2017, he requested a hearing, arguing that because he was a teenager at the time of the crimes, he deserved a chance for release someday. He apologized in court, spoke about his time in prison, claimed he had changed, but the judge wasn't convinced. The sentence stayed. 3 life terms, back to back. Daniel LaPlante would remain behind bars. Today, Daniel is in a maximum security prison in Massachusetts. He's 50 years old and still serving his sentence. The home where he once hid inside the walls has long since been torn down. But for the people of Townsend, and for those who knew the Gustafsons, the memory of what happened there will never truly disappear. Not because it was the most violent crime, not even because of his age, but because of how it started, with a quiet knock inside the wall, and a teenager who chose fear over help.